Glyphosates, what are they? Where do they come from? Are they toxic? And what can you do about it? Hello, my name is Ryan. This is High Carb Regenerator. Today I wanted to talk about glyphosates. It's a topic that I really didn't want to touch all that much until I really started looking into what they are and just kind of how bad they actually are. I always kind of sloughed it off. I'm like, whatever, you just, wash the little things off your produce and move on with your way, but it really isn't that way. So here we go. Here's the glyphosate. So it's grass and weed killer poisoning. Glyphosate is the poisonous ingredient in some weed killers. Here's a couple of them. I think Roundup's probably the most popular. Bronco, Glyphenox, Cleanup, Rodeo, or Rodeo, whatever you want to say. Weed off. Other products may contain glyphosates. Here are some of the symptoms. So abdominal cramps, anxiety, breathing difficulty, coma, blue lips or fingernails. Some people get that for the Raynaud's, I think what it's called: diarrhea, dizziness, drowsiness, headache, irritation in the mouth and throat, low blood pressure, nausea and vomiting, may vomit blood, weakness, kidney failure, slow heart rate. Here's the issue, right? You see these symptoms, and it's so common for almost everything. This is your body's response to just about everything. So you wouldn't really put two and two together that you might have glyphosate issues. Toxic effects of glyphosate on systematic review. So here's an abstract. Glyphosate, a non-selective systemic biocide with broad spectrum activity, is the most widely used herbicide in the world. It can persist in an environment for days or months, and its intensive and large-scale use can constitute a major environmental health problem. Here's the issue. Like, you might buy organic, but maybe, up the road, somebody's using this stuff and it gets in the water and then it gets in the organic. In this systematic review, we investigate the current state of knowledge and related to the effects of pesticides on the nervous system of various animal species and humans. All right, so you can see that this leads to a lot of bad things. Glyphosate also seems to exert a significant toxic effect on neurotransmission and to induce oxidative stress, neuroinflammation, and mitochondrial dysfunction, processes that lead to neuronal death due to autophagy, necrosis, or apoptosis, as well as, I swear I know how to read, as well as the appearance of behavioral and motor disorders. The doses of glyphosate that produce neurotoxic effects vary widely, but are lower than the limits set by regulatory agencies. That's probably the key right here. Although there are important discrepancies between the analyzed finding, it is unequivocal that exposure of glyphosate produces important alterations in the structure and function of the nervous system of humans, rodents, fish, and invertebrates. And here's the thing: this affects even, anybody who's even not vegan, because these things are going to get into the soil of the animals that people eat and the fish and everything else. It's nasty. So I'm going to link this down below. You can read it if you feel like it. So I wanted to look into what crops are most sprayed with glyphosates. Conventional farmers spray glyphosate on genetically engineered corn, oats, soybean, and wheat before it is harvested. And I think one of the things that's kind of most important, probably to the group that watched this video, or my channel, is it sprayed on rice? It's rarely applied directly in rice fields due to its toxicity to rice. Now, this should give you some kind of idea of just how toxic this stuff is. They won't even put it on rice because it's so toxic that the rice can't survive. But anyway, if you like your rice, then that's probably a good thing, because it doesn't seem they spray it on. The last thing I wanted to do in this little portion here is, here's the dirty dozen. Here's the ones that the most pesticides contaminated. So this is the ones that are going to have most likely the glyphosates or other bad chemicals on it. So strawberries is number one, spinach, kale, peaches, pears, nectarines, apples, grapes. This is the one I really stay away from, because grapes really get sprayed like really bad. You can actually see it, you can feel it, everything. As far as the apples, you can contact the orchard. Apple and grape picking season's coming up. You can contact them, you can ask what they put on there. Bell peppers and hot peppers. Now, here's the thing. I think if they're grown in like a greenhouse, like the greenhouse peppers. I don't know if they use as much. Cherries, blueberries, green beans. And then here is the Clean 15, most likely to not be sprayed, most unlikely to be sprayed, maybe however I say that. All right, so avocados, sweet corn. Oh, that's cool. Pineapple, onion, papaya, I don't like. Sweet peas, frozen asparagus. That's really weird because I read an article before this that said asparagus is the most likely to have glyphosate on it. So, honeydew melon, kiwis, cabbage, mushrooms, mangoes, sweet potatoes, watermelon, 100%. I've actually grown watermelon. I've never seen anything even attempt to get into watermelon. All right, so that brings us back to the more interesting thing is if you really think of Roundup, at least for me, back in the day when it first started coming out, you really thought about it as spraying it on dandelion weeds in your yard. And I always liked juicing dandelions, and they've actually got a root. So I started looking into that a little bit. All right, so I wanted to talk about dandelion. So if you really think about the glyphosates, you think about the Roundup back in the day, they were always spraying these dandelions. You know, if they were in the cracks of your driveway or wherever they were. And this is really how I think of Roundup.
Weeds, no problem. Kill weeds and grasses, roots and all, with a shot of Roundup.
And so I wanted to look up the nutritional value of dandelion, and I've actually juiced dandelion in the past, and it really clears you out quite good. So here's some health benefits of dandelions. Provides antioxidants, reduce inflammation, manage blood pressure, control blood sugar, and lower cholesterol. It helped me actually lose some weight. So, and this is the exact same thing that we see in the aspirin. And who owns aspirin? Bayer. Who owns Monsanto? Bayer. All right, so now that you know this, so if you really think about it, the dandelion actually does everything that the aspirin does, and the company that is destroying dandelion doesn't want you to eat it or juice it or whatever, and says it's a terrible thing. Sells this formula to kill dandelions. Also is owned by a parent company who sells aspirin, who does the exact same thing the dandelion does to your heart. You know, after I started getting into this, I started noticing that lawsuit kept coming up, and I found that Monsanto has settled over 100,000 Roundup lawsuits, paying up $11 billion as of May 2022. There are still 30,000 lawsuits pending. 30,000 lawsuits pending. This includes 4,000 cases in multi-district litigations in California. MDL cases are not class action lawsuits. Instead, they group cases together so that instead of answering the same question repeatedly at each separate, so basically, a bunch of people are going after this. They've basically lost every single case that they've ever been against. I know one of the biggest cases they lost was $300 million in damages. I had read this. I thought it was $289 million, but I guess it was 300. But anyway, none of this is good. I looked it up again here. So latest Roundup lawsuits. So since that article, there's been another 4193 added to that. So how is it that a company that has 100,000 lawsuits against 100,000 lawsuits against it is still around? How is that possible? Any other industry probably that isn't connected with the pharmaceutical life would be gone. There would be no way the government would finally step in and say, look, there's 100,000 lawsuits against you. That's a lot of lawsuits. That's a lot of lawsuits. Something isn't right here. All right, so here's some seemingly good news. Some states have prohibited or restricted use of Roundup or glyphosate. Bayer will stop selling glyphosates in U.S. lawn and garden markets starting in 2023. In July of 2021, Bayer announced that it will stop selling glyphosate-based Roundup. I'm sure they're going to put some other bullshit in something else, but nothing's ever legit. Glyphosate is a chemical compound, while Roundup is a product that contains glyphosate. Some people who are not that familiar with herbicides tend to interchange the two items. We'll see what happens with this anyways. But the last thing that I wanted to add is after I've shown you all this kind of stuff, keeping in mind to lower the number. So here's some kind of chart on toxicity. I didn't really open up the chart, but this means that caffeine is 40 times more toxic than glyphosate. I've gone through all of this, couple minutes of this stuff, and just so you know that caffeine is 40 times more toxic than glyphosate. Anyway, sending it out. All right, so here's the closing ceremony. I just thought it was kind of funny that I just got done through all this stuff about how toxic glyphosates are. Coffee is 40 times more toxic than glyphosate. And let's not forget that glyphosate is lost like 100,000 lawsuits, right? And people drink coffee every day. I don't know. I just thought it was kind of ironic. Anyway, that's the video. Hopefully you liked it. What do you do about it? There's not a ton that you can do about it. Who's going to be taking on a $63 billion company? But it is interesting to know what's going on out there and some of the things that you can do to mitigate the risk. And like I showed you, the clean 15, the dirty dozen, the things to stay away from. But wow, what a crazy thing. Anyway, comments, questions down below. Like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you in the next video.